pal.
Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Philip Lee, one of Ireland's fastest growing corporate law firms and expert advisors at the heart of the Dublin and London startup, fintech, and crypto communities. On the show this week, we've got...
I'm Luis Martinez, and I'm founder and CEO at Staxe.
And...
I'm Martin Liebrich, co-founder and CTO of Staxe.
Staxe is enabling music and creative production economies on Web3 by allowing you to share in the success of creative productions through investing in artists and events or a cause that you believe in. Staxe are the seventh of the founding teams forming the launchable Web3 Techstars Accelerator class of 2022 that we've got on the show over the next few months. In this episode, I talked to Luis and Martin about Luis's pursuit of his creative passions that brought him and Martin together, what Staxe is and how it works, how creative productions are like micro startups, blockchain is a social coordination tool, and the big vision for Staxe, all right here on Money Never Sleeps. So guys, listen, I'm going to start this with a little story that my kids are familiar now with Mario Palma, who's one of the NFTs available on the Staxe platform right now. And I was playing him the other morning on a Saturday over breakfast. Wonderful, somewhat traditional Spanish music in the background. And they're like, Dad, what the hell is this? So I told them the story and I said, listen, guys, we're making money by listening to this. And they're like, okay, yeah, absolutely, play it. How much are we going to make? And I left it there, right? Because, it was a good way to get started. But listen, Luis and Martin, awesome to have you both on the show. Thanks so much for joining. Why don't we get started and dive right into it? And Luis, just maybe share your backstory and how you got to this point, and then we'll do the same with Martin, yeah?
Sounds good, Pete. And thanks so much for bringing us in. It's a pleasure and an honor to be in Money Never Sleeps. Been following the rest of the cohort and learning much from all your guests and collaborators here. So a bit about my background. I come from the finance world. I started off in my very early years when I was something like 15, 16. My first incursion into tech was actually through music. I began having this dream of being able to play around with music and synthesizers. I had a strong interest in what, hardware tech could do to bending sounds, things like oscillators and just playing with the new technology features that allowed us to just bend sounds and play with them. And that was my first interaction with tech back then. I got into DJ school actually because of that. I started learning how to use and manipulate the sounds. But sometime along the road, my family came in. My family is a bit traditional. I'm from Mexico. And as you can imagine, the typical generation, what is it? Before Generation X, what is it? The baby boomers, is it?
Yeah, the boomers, right?
Boomers, yeah, the traditional baby boomers way of looking at what your career should be was, you either need to study finance, law, or medicine, right? That's go study hard, work hard, build a career. And definitely being a DJ and bending sounds was not part of that, right? So had to, kind of readapt my dreams and my vision of what would be my career. I started studying finance. Got into very early in my career into the trading rooms as a trader. One of my inspirations back then, which is why it's such a pleasure to be in Money Never Sleeps, was Wall Street, the movie, Gordon Gekko, and what it would be like to be in Wall Street back in the 90s, right? 80s, 90s was kind of the inspiration behind it. So I got into the trading desks for a few years, traded equity, options, did arbitrage, used to do proprietary trading for a couple of brokers. And while I learned a lot from there, yes, there was a moment along my career that I started having much interest into getting into building something of my own, as we always do. And then it was sometime around 2017 when I started venturing into the crypto space. So started learning about programmable money was what really caught my eye. Programmable money was something so interesting. And I remember being in the trading desk and looking at the libertarian side of what you could do with programmable money. And at the same time, looking at the trading desk being limited, we actually had more people from the compliance desk, overwatching us than traders. So it was like, okay, libertarian is out there in crypto. Here we're yeah, behind these four walls, and I need to do something about it. So that got me into the rabbit hole, and I remember back then, it was 2017, started mining some ETH back at 32, it was my first, let's say, interaction with crypto when ETH was 32 US dollars. Too bad I had to spend on all of my ETH, about mined ETH and paying the electricity until it was no longer profitable. So yeah, then I realized the next profitable thing, or the next interesting thing to do, would be to actually build, especially on tokenized structures. Tokenization was kind of my biggest interest, and then connected that with my longstanding passion for music and for the creative industry as my first incursion into the space. I mean, I've done some promotion in the past, and I've done some gigs, small gigs, kind of putting these together. But there was a light bulb moment one day when one of my friends is a booking manager, and we had everything in place to put a gig together. So they had a very good artist. We had most of the community and the fans that love this artist. So he would bring him in. He had the date ready. And then we put it in some of our WhatsApp chats and whatever we used. Facebook, I think it was Facebook chats back then. And we just started testing the water. And before we knew it, we had something like, 200 people, which was the entire capacity of that we could find for a venue back then. Sold out. Like, people were throwing the money at us. I'll buy this ticket right now. When are the tickets coming out? And then we were missing one piece, putting the venue in. And we started looking for venues, and we couldn't find the venue. And the venue wanted just an upfront payment, so that they would give us a date. And then you have this chicken and egg problem, right? Okay, we have the tickets sold, basically, or semi-sold. We had a very high chance of not. It was going to be profitable no matter what we did. We knew that. We had the artists ready. We had the venue ready, but the venue would not give us the date unless we gave them the money first. But we could not sell tickets or print anything on the tickets, even if we didn't have the artist. So you see where we're going here. And that was a light bulb moment when we said, okay, we need to find a way to coordinate capital so that these gigs happen. These gigs don't just end up, out there because we were missing money up front. And it was just, didn't make sense to us that it couldn't be coordinated. So we started that with Be Live was the project behind it. And that has evolved since then until what we call Staxe.
Awesome. It's awesome. No, I love the rebellious nature of you being pushed into a career in finance after dabbling in music and then saying, I'm going back, right? And it's like, you got to follow your passion. You got to go for it. And it's awesome. I love the way you told that story about, not being able to get the financing, right? And it's not even not being able to get the financing. It's that upfront payment. You can't get a date, and you can't print tickets. You can't tell people about the gig.
Right. And the timing, right? Like, money and timing are two things that typically don't come in hand, right? And that was why, liquidity sourcing and DeFi, Web3 becomes so relevant.
Absolutely. Cool. And Martin, maybe bring us up to speed with your backstory and how you got to this point and met Luis as well. Yeah.
So yeah, as the CTO, I need to have a techie story, basically. So I got my first computer when I was 10 years old. Was a C64. I started dabbling around a bit back then. Needed kind of to understand quite a bit, needed to use it. Started programming it. That was great. I always wanted to do some games. Never really got far. Mostly because I got hung up on the art, because I just cannot paint. So, and I kept using computers through high school and college, and then I thought about, what should I study at university? And I didn't go for a computer science right from the bat, but then really thinking about all the different possibilities, I thought, this is the only thing I can really see myself still doing in 20 years' time, because it's so fast evolving even back then. I spent a couple of years then studying. Can't say I was a brilliant student, but still, eventually I got out of it. Studied the ETH in Zurich and based in Switzerland still today. And that was basically right around 98, where the first internet, the web craze started to happen. So I remember having had my first email in the early 90s, friends asking me, "Oh, what do you need this for?" About it. So I got out. I got a contract with the bank, earning good money. It was around of about 1.5 years. I was earning good money, but I had the feeling like I have no clue what the hell I'm doing here, and how long can this good run last? So I was looking for something else, and as it happens, I met a friend of mine from football at the bar, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he said like, yeah, I'm working for this IT consulting company. That could be interesting for you. Why don't you check it out? So I went to check it out, listened to them, interviewed with them. Thought it was great. That was technology partners. And I thought, yeah, this is the place where I can learn something. I'll stay 2 to 3 years. It should be 15 years later we sold the company.
That's what happens, huh?
So that's what happens. I stuck around for a bit longer, but I found out this was not necessarily the place I wanted to be. So I told my bosses, I'll go on a sabbatical, but I don't think I'm coming back. I did that. Did some traveling. I spent a month in Israel, has been very interesting. And I spent like 3 months in New York and Miami, which was absolutely great. I started to look into crypto. That was 2017, and everything was going crazy. I had known crypto for quite some time, I didn't really get into it. So I missed basically already 2 bull markets. I read about it. I found it very interesting. And I was pretty sure back then, this is going to stay. This is not going to go away anymore. And that's when I made loose. I went to this conference in Crypto Valley in Zug, and they had this startup, pitching. And I was listening in on them. And there was a couple of guys I found interesting. Staxe was one of them. But in the end, I got talking to Louis, and the idea in the beginning was just to say, oh, I might invest some of the money I had left over from selling out the other company. But then over time we found, we would complement each other quite well. So it became more than just an investment.
Cool. And, before we get into Staxe and what that is, and just thinking about obviously, Luis being a commercially geared CEO with good understanding of crypto, a passion for music, all that's clear. Martin, great technology background, curiosity into crypto, figuring things out. The yin and the yang seem pretty clear, but is there anything else there that just makes it work between the two of you so far?
Yeah, I think it's all about the design room, where it really works together, because the skill set can be complementary. But if you cannot find coordination of those ideas at the very high level and with, in an efficient amount of time, it still doesn't seem to capture the skill set or the potential of the combined skill set. So one thing that has worked out really well from the beginning is, okay, let's bring ideas as to what we want to tokenize, the value, the utility behind such tokenization. And then, at the design level, have Martin bring in what can and what cannot be done. And, I like it because Martin is a realist. I'm much more of a dreamer. So therefore, you can imagine how we mash ideas in the table and how it actually comes out as a much more, just landed, realistic, and feasible sets of features, I think, tokenization features that we come up with. It's how we work.
I get it.
Yeah, I think this difference of personality is, I think, very helpful. The way these discussions usually work is Louis is coming with some idea completely out of the left field, and I'm just rolling my eyes and say, no way, we cannot do this, not ever. And then we start approaching each other, and usually it comes out with a completely different idea, but something that I would have come up with on my own, and he wouldn't have come up on his own.
Yeah. I've got people that I've had relationships with like that in the past, and it can be magical, be truly magical when you get that working. Listen, let's shift gears and move into Staxe. Luis, can you tell us about Staxe, what it is, and the source of your conviction on why it's the perfect thing for the two of you to be working on right now, and obviously with the team that you're growing as well with Sudhanshu, and shout out to Sudhanshu as well.
Yes, thanks, Pete. So just in brief, Staxe, what it is a tokenization tool. We bring creatives and their economies and enable them in Web3, mostly music economies. And what we do is we work with music rights, we work with royalties, And we also work with live events from, ticketing as the main source of income. So the premise for tokenization in our platform is finding those creative assets that will produce future income in, a determined amount of time, right? And that becomes a potential for tokenizing something today, which at the present value will signal an upside for whoever wants to purchase such a fragmented value of what we tokenize. So just to put it together, it's a marketplace, two-sided marketplace where we supply assets from the creative space, and then we have collectors and investors come and buy into those assets because they wish to participate or share the success of their artists, of their songs, of their creatives, as well as having some unique interactions along the way.
Very cool. I get it. Like I said at the beginning, I bought one of the NFTs, and you don't really think about this too much as a music fan, that, okay, live music, which is where it all started, back in the day, it was just someone got up and performed wherever they were. But, in the current day and age, sound like a boomer, but I'm not, I'm Gen X. We've got a problem to solve there. You have a venue where people need to go. There's security around that venue. There are all different types of processes that need to be set up at that venue. You've got the tickets that need to be sold, and that you want to turn a profit off of it. This isn't just someone getting up and performing. If they could just do that and everybody was independently wealthy, then, well, we wouldn't have a need for this, right? But you do need to finance a production, and that's, being a live event, and there's an upfront cost to that, and then you sell tickets. And hopefully the ticket sales and the revenue you generate off of that is more than the cost of the production, and sharing these profits amongst token holders is the big thing. Second thing with the music productions themselves, and what I bought Mario Palma's the production of one of his singles, that it does cost money to produce music. You have studio costs, you have distribution costs, all that type of stuff. So, but you want to actually sell that. Right now, artists, for the most part, what is it? Something like there's 14 million artists on Spotify, and something tiny proportion of those actually make $50,000 or more. So there is passing back that revenue to the artist just for the music that they produce and they record and they make available to the world. That is something that needs to be done, and it sounds like that is one of the things that you guys are attacking. Yeah,
precisely, Pete. I mean, the DNA of the project is to give the power, or to empower, better said, the creatives, whether it's the promoter behind the gig, whether it's the artist that's actually, spending the studio time to create his art. And you said it, these guys are almost like tiny startups, each one of their productions, because they need financing for that studio time, for their bass player, for example, they need to invest in the video, which is going to help them get the word out for what they just created, and then market it. And it almost sounds like a micro startup setup, and they need financing in order to produce more and more often.
Absolutely. Martin, from you, I mean, from the technology perspective and getting this MVP built and out to the world, what have been some of the key themes that you focused on when it comes to, okay, timing is everything. We've got to get this out. We've got to get it up and running. From an architectural standpoint, what's been your focus?
Sure. Yeah, so we started looking into this, and Luis had a kind of a prototype when we started, and when we got together, and I said, we need to move fast. And I was pretty confident I could do the back end, the smart contract. At this point in time, they were not overly complicated. And a good friend of mine left the former company as well, Tom, and together we kind of hacked the design together. Well, we knew the front end work would be much harder, and it's all about making it easy for people to get into this space. So we contracted the company to do this, and actually by pure coincidence, I mean, like, I was looking specifically in Brazil because I had good experiences and I knew the prices were okay. But the guys we contracted allowed us to have a first MVP out, and we found out over the time was that they convinced us to use a certain technology stack that we did find out wasn't well compatible with the blockchain underneath. So we got to throw it away and start again. We went back and forth here. I mean, we started out with a let's say, traditional web application with its own backend to things or writing to the smart contracts. The current version, we have everything basically either in the app itself or in the smart contracts. But the big hurdle, I think, is still the getting the people to use our app and to make it easy, because we're not a DeFi protocol where you have the legions and then they're all fine with this. We have music lovers basically, and they might have no clue about crypto and wallets and all of these things. And how do you enable these? This is a front end and UI UX design problem, much less than a hard technical one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And the whole process of, and this word is being used so much lately, but abstracting the user away from the Web3 current thing, right? And that everybody does focus on the current thing as opposed to where it could go. I was listening to the Bankless podcast with Chris Dixon as well as Mark Andreessen from A16Z. The two of them were with the Bankless guys, and they were talking about the first laptop in 1983 and how it was kind of a joke, right? And talk about, Money Never Sleeps and Wall Street, Luis, and seeing some of the old mobile phones that were depicted in that movie and the computers that people were using at the time, and looking at what we have now. That first laptop in 1983, I guess it was something like 43 pounds. It was a suitcase that you had to lug with you, like onto the airplane, for example, and it had a 4-inch screen. So where we are right now in terms of the user experience of how you buy non-fungible tokens that are linked to, revenue streams from an artist, that are a digital collectible, that are perhaps, something that you could also use as an access to an event. All of these types of things, experience to get that. There's a way to go to abstract the user away from some of these finer details of the crypto space. But look at that 1983 laptop and where we are now, right? Even look at where we got to in 10 years with laptops. So, when you think about kind of the long-term vision here, when music productions and creative productions overall are financed in this way, and that people can share in that and share in that freely, how big can this get? What's that going to look like?
I mean, I think you said it, Peter. Let's talk about the size of the industry, and we can just take one, let's say, music festival as an example. So we're starting to work with music festivals. We're starting to create their NFT collections for them, and we untap the potential mass market that is behind them. And just think about a festival now. You'll have 5,000 to 10,000 people, or in some cases 200,000 for the big festivals. Audiences of that size already grouped and kind of put together for the same reason or identity, which is a specific artist or a music genre and whatnot. And then what music has as power, and live music specifically, is to group these people, these audiences, into a like-minded happening, such as showing up to the concerts. And you feel the energy there, and we can talk about, how all the experienced economy side. But what we see as a big picture is, if these audiences could be brought over to Web3, and we're seeing that they want to be taken over to Web3, then you have a critical mass to address or to enable. And there's so many things to do behind that. And you said it, access, bringing them closer to their artists, having, even the OG behind actually supporting an artist that nobody knew about. Yeah, we see some of these collectors buying into music royalties in Web3 as a, legacy investment, where maybe today is not worth that much. But, think about you investing into, I don't know, maybe beat Paul McCartney and 70 years ago when he was out with nope.
I'm less than 70.
You're right. When he was, he was a young kid and before the Beatles, and then for some reason you tapped into this NFT he was putting out there. Think, it's a legacy that could be transformed, and the people that are investing into this have this mindset. So there's many edges as to how we could put it together. But to answer your question, is all about we see blockchain as a social coordination tool, and coordinating the activities of these big masses that we spoke about with NFTs, with tokens, with the incentives that these bring, has a very powerful case for the industry, and that's what we see. And there's even more to it, where we've been bringing over music rights over to Web3. We've been talking to, existing protocols in this space. And then even more interesting conversations rock up where we are realizing that royalties and these music rights or potentially unsold tickets can be collateral in Web3. Because again, they're productive assets, right? Which should bring a real live cash flow in the future. So what does that mean from the DeFi perspective is, okay, these can be collateralized and then open a whole new range of offers and features to these creatives that they had no idea they had access to in Web2. And this includes lending capabilities, even staking, or having some kind of savings or passive income on their own art. And using their own art as collateral for creating more and for financing future productions, amongst many other. We can even get into the institutional side of this. Private equity firms. We know there's huge private equity firms in the 7-figure range where they exclusively engage in investing in music catalogs as their investment thesis. And it would be amazing to see how we could open their exposure of such portfolios in a tokenized manner, so that they can direct or better define the risk and the reward that they're looking for in such a space. And I think that's what's coming next. That's what that's our big vision for the project, into pulling in as many ecosystem participants, including labels, promoters in the space, where we're talking to ticketing companies, and then the value interaction amongst these, which right now is staggered, non-standardized, and Web3 will probably make the change.
I'm with you. It's fascinating. There's so many opportunities here that it's the financialization of everything. It's that once you can link a token to an actual real world thing and have that provenance to say that, yes, this is legitimately connected, that it can be in your wallet. You could hold, obviously, crypto alongside what will become eventually central bank digital currencies or CBDCs, stable coins today, your tickets to an event, your digital collectibles, your favorite sports that are there, whether that be, flat images or those be videos. It could be a replay of, hey, I got this NFT of this artist and that gave me special access or special rights to get the raw video from the event. And I've got that built into my NFT, right? Of that actual event that I went to and obviously played a part in financing the production of it by buying this NFT in advance.
Hey everyone, this is Pete. Let me tell you about the folks at Philip Lee. A few years ago, I was at my first venture capital industry dinner in Dublin, and honestly, I felt a bit lost. I bumped into Andrew Tizali, one of the partners at Philip Lee. He bought me a pint and introduced me to the team, and they took me under their wing. That take you under their wing approach has been what I've heard consistently from fintech and crypto startups who I know have worked with Philip Lee in Dublin and London to help them wrap the right legal framework around their business, fundraising, and regulatory needs. And I can't recommend them enough. Get in touch with the team at philiplee.ie or on moneyneversleeps.ie/Philip Lee to learn more.
Martin, from a technology perspective, the art of the possible needs to grow alongside the technology that's available to us that we can build on right now. At the same time, keeping in mind your product development roadmap and saying, well, if we're planning a year out, if we're planning 3 months out or 6 months out, this technology is moving so fast. You're going to have these new tools at your fingertips that are evolving every 3 to 6 months. How do you keep pace with all of this so that, Luis's left field ideas that are actually, left field isn't that far away. It's never that far away. That you can bring it all together from a tech perspective. How do you do that?
It's an interesting question. I mean, this is quite hard, and it was a lot of reading, listening, looking at. Anything that kind of gets thrown at you. You need to have a look at what they're doing, and then there's something new is coming up, and you need to dive in, and you need to think about, could I use this? My friend Tom here as well, who's really the lead engineer, and he sent me a picture on Sunday night saying, this is probably weird, but I'm drinking whiskey and I'm watching up something on Solidity. So yeah, it's kind of constantly,
wow.
You need to constantly look into these things. It really reminds me of the first internet where there were new things coming in. You could never keep up, but the good things The good thing is now that they come up to the top much faster. They're the left field IDs.
Absolutely. Absolutely no. And thanks for reminding me that coding can be a spectator sport, but generally only when it's done in accompaniment with fine whiskey, or any whiskey will do, right? Bringing it back to the here and now, guys. Luis, first with you, what do you think the biggest challenge is for the rest of this year with Staxe?
So I think, it's a good timing to throw out this question because we're right in the middle of the year, right? And that gives us a visibility to what's happening in the past and where we want to go in the future. So first the past and to build kind of the context as to what we think the challenges are. Our bet is that what happened to the art space in 2021 and, the whole adoption by creatives and just I think across the board in any industry in the art space will be transferred to the music. So we now see music as an undervalued asset just because Web3 is here. And just the way that you could look right now at art, and it's been, I think, widely verified or validated that art and its scarcity and the liquidity around Web3 just reprices the asset at a higher value.
It does.
Why has it not happened to music is the question. Because we consume even more of it, I think, and it's just out there. And our answer to that is, well, it's still controlled by the big gorillas of the industry, and and what's best is the libertarian ideas of Web3 are pushing people to want a change, especially the creatives. We see this creative-led movement where people are having realizations, libertarian realizations of what my money can be, the freedom that I can have with my money as an artist on Web3. And this is the inflection point, the way we see it. So the challenge is right now, to answer your question, is making as many creatives and fans aware of this opportunity. And it's mostly an educational challenge. That means evangelizing them and making them understand that you cannot just listen to music the way Spotify has told us or YouTube has told us we should, but you can own your music. You can share the success of your artists. You can walk with them along the way, share their experience, their exclusiveness, their artists, that sexiness and fun side of music doesn't have to be labeled as an investment, right? Like, which is like, I don't know, sometimes in the crypto world, it sounds like a boring word or something like a bit too white collar. And NFTs, which is what they've mostly adopted, now become as the bridge between these two worlds, such as, hey, I can own and generate income of my passions. And I couldn't do that before. And we're in that point. So getting this message out to the people is our greatest challenge. Like I said, there's many, many masses behind these audiences. Therefore, the opportunity is huge. But the real challenge is being very strategic as to how you bring them over and onboard them into Web3. And that's what I think is coming up. And we are, preparing for that.
I love it. No, it's great. And that's it. You build something amazing and then you need to get into people's hands and you need to do that as quick as you can. So I hear that. Martin, from you, the biggest challenge looking forward for the rest of this year, from what's in your lap, right?
So the first thing goes hand in hand with what Luis said. So we are looking into really our whole UI, UX, make it even more attractive, make it, we're working with artists. It needs to look brilliant. This is very clear. And then, yes, how do we abstract the underlying technology away? So this is ongoing already. We're talking with some UI UX agency as well to help us on this. The other big one is certainly the Staxe token. We're looking into, we want to bring out the token and tokenomics, utility, and all of this. All of this needs to be coded, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
And the final one for this year is probably the integration with DeFi protocols. So looking into some ways currently right now. And that's the last one I'll say. Looking a bit further in the future, I think we're bringing in music rights, whatever. It's bringing in real world assets to blockchain. And I think this is still quite an unsolved. Do this really decentralized, trustless. Currently, you have to, in many of these protocols, you still have to to trust somebody that he will enforce some legal contract. How can you improve on this? How can you make this really decentralized and trustless? This is going to be an interesting question for the whole industry going forward.
Yeah. And one thing I'm thinking is that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole here. Like you said, that there's so much music out there and it is undervalued at this stage, and has been because there's so much of it out there. And, when you're bringing real world assets into digital space, you need to take inventory of all that first. And taking inventory lets you separate the wheat from the chaff and really promote the good things that are out there and the things that is still just a tiny niche audience, and let that be. And it lets you do that. So getting my head around this with you guys today has been fascinating. I could continue like this for another few hours with you guys, but we are running short on time. So why don't we move to the last question that we ask everybody on this podcast? And Luis, we'll start with you. What is one thing that people wouldn't expect to know about you?
Wow, that's a good one. Well, for me, it would be, I'm a strong believer of metaphysics, something that people wouldn't.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. For the financial or very logical mind behind wouldn't be expected this. But yes, I am a strong believer. I mean, in what we can project in our mind, in the power of the power of the mind, the power of intention, the law of attraction. All of this is very relevant to me. I bring it into my daily practice through meditation, through visualization. And this is really what I really believe has gotten me to where I am today and will continue to take me to the places where my dreams go. So metaphysics, I mean, it's, I think, a hidden gem that everyone should discover on their own.
Absolutely. No. And what I'd like you to do is send me the title of the best book that you've read about metaphysics, and we can share that with the audience. Yeah.
Sounds good. And even, I even have some special visualization practices that you could try, which, they just take you to another level. You just sit back and wait how they materialize and they come true. Call me a dreamer, but it's out there. I think there's metaphysics out there moving things around.
Awesome. I love it. Martin, what about you? What's one thing that people wouldn't expect to know about you?
Sure. So I thought about this one when we were with you guys from Texters in Berlin, and I was telling people, "Oh, wait a minute, that's not true." I mean, I told the guys that I was shortly after the wall opened, I was in Berlin. That is true, but I was in Berlin before, because when I was a kid, like 4 or 5 years, we lived in Germany, Western Germany, and you have Western Germany and Eastern Germany, and we lived in the Western part, but my father was actually in the Communist Party. So we got twice invited by the German Democratic Republic, by the Socialist Part, for vacation. And obviously, I didn't understand anything back then about these two different states. And we were going over this famous border in Berlin. And I was thinking, now we're in a different country. But then people were still speaking German, and not even a dialect like when you go to Switzerland. They were speaking German like before, so I didn't really understand it. But so I have kind of a socialist upbringing.
Wow. That is one of the most interesting courses that I took in my undergrad was Marxism, Marxist economics. So let's talk about that over a pint when we're in Dublin, definitely. Because there's some really interesting concepts there that are parlayed into so much of the stuff we're working on right now. And it's so funny how that word, oh, you're a socialist has become like a thing in America, right? It's like as an insult, and it's like, or as you are, you're part of this scary monster group. And it's like, I'm not a card-carrying socialist, but I do have an appreciation for the science of it and the economics of it, which is really, really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. Guys, listen, this has been an awesome chat. We're taking things so much further than I thought we would just in about 45 minutes. So thank you. Really looking forward to having you guys back in Dublin with us in a couple of weeks' time and finishing the program with you guys on a high note. So thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thank you, Pete. It was awesome.
Thank you, Pete. We really appreciate the invitation and look forward to meeting you in Dublin as well. Can't wait.
Thanks.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Luis and Martin for opening up their minds to help us figure out why they do what they do. Links to get in touch with Luis and Martin and learn more about Staxe are in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early-stage startup investor and advisor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3. If you'd like to talk to me about your business, drop me a line on info@moneyneversleeps.ie. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!